I spent 5 years in pretty much silence. I didn't have a car. I had a bike. I lived in one room, and I would go out every now and then. Maybe, I don't know if I could really say I had a date, but I would go out with people, men, women, but really spent much of that entire day, I would say, sometimes not even communicating with anyone for weeks, in that one room that was 10 by 12. And I had a hot plate, and the hot plate was over there. I had my altar meditation over there. I slept on a futon. The closet was behind me, and there was a rose garden in front of me. And I spent tremendous amount of time alone. And I had to connect to something. I realized that life is relationship. We're always looking for relationship. So someone says, I live alone, but they're in relationship maybe if they're living in the woods with nature. We find a need to connect, It's in our souls. And in that room, I really felt, whether it's true or not, that I connected to something far greater than myself that whipped me at times, meaning I just realized how confused my mind was and how simple life is if you give up your identity. And that sounds funny, but I remember walking in the room and I said, this is one man's search for non-identity. I started out in medicine, was extremely successful, also doing a lot of talks that were very successful. I wrote a book that was successful. But I thought I was a fraud. I really thought I was a fraud. And during the lectures, I would be talking and my mouth would be going, but I was thinking how full of crap I was as I was talking. And I really didn't like myself. And I had to give up this facade of all that I was to find myself. And that's what happened in that room. And with it, I think later on came out psychological processes that I use and wrote a book about. But I think it must have come out of that room, because when I wrote my thesis for my PhD, basically it was writing it within one day. It just poured out of me. Back to that, what happened in that room, because it's so important. When I went in and thought, it's one man's search for non-identity, I knew what I was. I was a doctor, I was a husband, I was a father, I was a man, I was a lecturer, all these things. But I didn't know who I was. And Rabbi Hillel, at I think the 14th or 15th, the 4th or 5th century, simply wrote, if I am not there for myself, who am I? If I'm not there for myself, who am I? If I'm only there for myself, what am I? And I knew my what. I knew my what, but I didn't know my who. And I think that's really important. The who's what's inside me. It's my soul. It's who is the real Paul Brenner? Stand up. Who is that person? And one thing I did know is I didn't like him. And in that room, I shed my what. And the who is what connects all of us. And I'm not saying I'm in a perfect place of love all the time. I should call my wife into the room. She would know, or call Jamie into the room, my grandkid who's living with us. No, it's not that I'm love all the time, but I know that's the essential thing, is who are we? Who are we? And that's what I hope people now have time to embrace, because as I mentioned many times, we have enough goods and services, we have enough what's in this world, we don't have enough who. And they're imbalanced. Who you are does not diminish what you do in life, but you have to have that who that we all have, and that is love. And I can't say it enough times. I'm not saying it because other people say it and it sounds good. It is the truth.